I agree that I have two roles in this interview. I keep the time and I keep the level of conversation
Decent.
So that's an important thing. But before we get to talk about what today you're doing and what company is doing, I just want to dig a bit back. So you went to school in the States, and then what happened?
Yeah, I went to schools like a lot. I went to ETF here and physics faculty, and then midway through I transferred to Dartmouth College in the United States and I finished my education over there. Yeah.
Okay. And your first job was then in the States, and how was that?
Yeah, my first job was Palm. They made the first smartphone, and it was like a small crew. Actually, they were called Handspring at the time. It was like maybe 25 people. Made the very first smartphone. Made like billions of dollars in a couple of years. It was cool. I was just fresh off the boat, as you would say, and I don't know. My boss was head of telephony. He's now head of telephony of Apple. Like Isabel did our Wi-Fi, head of Wi-Fi Apple. Carl did our electronics. He's head of EE for Android. Matthias, our designer, is head of design at Google. So it was like a really kind of like, you know, ground level where people were making stuff. Now nobody even remembers that because, you know, after that Blackberries came and then iPhone.
If you try to make some parallel between Palm, because at the time Palm was pretty cool, and how they assembled the people that they have there, which were obviously great considering the development of the career. What can you drag out of there as some lesson for us here or for you in today's role? How they hired engineers, what the quality they looked in the engineer?
Yeah. Well, they were a cult. So the quality they looked for is we need to all hang out together and party together and be together and just live this thing together. And so compared to like how other people do the hiring, like what are the job requirements? The job requirement was that you were really smart, so they hired only off of Stanford, and there's a couple of us off of Dartmouth, like they have like 2 campuses. There's a bunch of young kids. We were all super gung-ho and super motivated, and I think that was the hiring thing.
Okay,
everybody had kind of fit together.
It was just kind of hiring the smartest out there. That's pretty much.
Yeah, back then you could do it. You know, like now if you're like, we're gonna hire the smartest out there, yeah, you're competing with Google, with Microsoft, with people who are like throwing in like apartments with the job offer. But back then it really wasn't like that in tech. And so they just went and mind you, like I've never in my life interviewed for a job. Like Dartmouth had career services, like guys from Google came to me at Dartmouth and begged to have me come, and I decided not to because the guy they interviewed was too dumb. And this is the reason why I'm pitching here in Serbia instead of being a billionaire somewhere. And so it was like a little bit of a different time hiring wise. You could just go and pick up one smart people from my college.
Okay, and after Palm, what was that?
After Palm, I went to Google. It was kind of a mass migration because Palm made that first phone and with 25 people, and then they decided to hire 2,000 people and make the same phone for the next 5 years, and then iPhone happened. And so we all kind of fled the ship, and Google got the big majority of us. We went working on Chrome OS and Android.
Okay, and now how did you migrate back to Serbia? When was that?
I always wanted to come back to Serbia, mostly because of the kids. I have 3 kids, and I always kind of thought that Serbia is the best place in the world to live with an American salary. And so I wanted at some point to migrate here, and we also had a company in San Francisco, and we're trying to hire there. And we had this idea of what we wanted to make. We wanted to be the kind of people that make that thing. Like that was the scary part, like we were like, the world needs this, it's possible to make it. There is some guy out there, or girl, that could make this, and I want to be that person, and we didn't know anything about it, and there's 2 big problems in making hardware. One is finding people, the other one is finding money. Can go into that into some detail, right? Like, so who funds hardware research? Like, VCs don't fund hardware research. I'll give you an example. For instance, this year is bloody amazing, okay? This year I ordered a cab and it came with no driver, right? Drove me around San Francisco. Then I talked to my computer in plain English and asked him to assemble a list of things I should talk to you about in SPLET, and it did it. And then I wanted to print out a T-shirt for my daughter, right? Because she had this I love being in the dream T-shirt, and I stole it from her and I printed Freddy Krueger on the back, right? And so I asked DALI, basically, like Stable Diffusion, to draw it, and it drew it. Now, we've been waiting for this thing for 40 years, right? Like, everybody's talking about AI. Like, you could not talk to your computer. I don't know, like, if you try talking to Siri, it's like talking to your little, the guy at the reception in a Turkish hotel, like, I'm not sure, yeah. And so, and nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. People are so saturated that, like, when it actually, like, we've been waiting for this 30 years, it happened, and everybody's like, and so, what's interesting about it is that when self-driving cars, when that was being made, the convolutional neural networks enabled that, right? Everybody thought innovation was mobile, social, location-based. Like, that's what everybody was doing, that's what everybody was investing in. These guys are out there doing CNNs. And then, when I remember when Elon Musk said he's investing in AI, and back then everybody was like, blockchain, right? The talk, it was like, yeah, but get us to Mars first and then, make a robot. Like, everybody was, they thought it was a ridiculous idea. So, point being, you can't tell innovation. Like, if you can talk about it with your bus driver, it's not innovation. Like, it's, do you know what I mean? And so that means VCs don't invest in it because it's in nobody's thesis. Like, real innovation is nobody's thesis. And so when you look at who invests in that, I want to say, there's universities, and I don't want to make enemies by saying universities are not fit for cross-disciplinary innovation. They're not fit for cross-disciplinary innovation. But they haven't done it, like, if you look at the last 50 years, no big research came out of it. And so that leads us to, like, most research was basically done by corporations. And now even that is petering out, okay? So if you look at, like, Xerox invented the computer mouse, this and that, UI, everything, and did they make money off of it? Not really. And so it's becoming really, really hard to raise money for hardware. And so the only way you can do it is you can decrease the cost, right? And if you look at the cost, like, everybody's here is doing software, right? Because engineering is software, right? And it's SaaS in particular. And in software, like early stage, 80% of your cost is salaries. And 20 years ago, you would come to Serbia and you would pay 10x lower salaries and you would make bank, right? But now it's not 10x, now it's 3x, right? 2-point-something x. And you can't really save money by coming to Serbia. But in hardware, if you look at where your costs are, like, let's say Google wants to make a new camera for the phone, front-facing camera, not the fancy one. Costs them about 800,000, right? Because they have to design the camera system, and for that, they don't have enough work to hire a designer in-house, so they hire a designing company. It costs a couple thousand per hour, and then you also have to find somebody who's going to make the lens. Are you going to turn it or are you going to mold it? Then if it's molded, then you need to have an associate that does that, and then somebody is going to have to make that mold, and it's a different company because mold's done in, like, metal and whatnot, and then somebody's going to have to actually, all of a sudden you have 25 entities collaborating together, and everybody has their sales, their marketing, their overhead, their profit. And so, but in Serbia, software engineer salaries there, they did jump 5x, but mechanical engineer salaries didn't budge, right? And so if you want to do this in Serbia, all of a sudden, your industrial design, top level, your mechanical, top level, all these other things, and you can do it in-house, and you can do it for significantly less money, significantly more, because these professions have a problem that, like 400 people will come out of electrical engineering, and only 5 will find job actually electrical engineering, and the rest of them are doing verification and some outsourcing jobs. And so we saw the opportunity to come here and really do the kind of hardware research which is impossible in the States. Like, not impossible if you're Google and Microsoft, but impossible. Like, no little startup who's not like third-time founders, who's not like independently wealthy, does it, and we were none of that, and on top of it, a little clumsy. And then we saw an opportunity to come here, and when we made our first camera sensor for 5K instead of 800, we were like, okay, we can do this right here, right? And so that is the impetus, business side that made us come here. But I would be lying if I didn't say that, like, personal side also had, like, it's fun to live in Serbia. I mean, like, compared to company culture that you have in the States where everybody's like, I don't want to say anything gets me in trouble. You said you're going to keep it level.
Yeah, I will give you 2 more seconds, but it's okay.
I thought that was 20 minutes. We're done.
No, but okay, so this was the reasoning, and reasoning is quite interesting because if you look,
there's logic in it.
There's logic in it, and all of you out there, if you want to look for verification, what you just said, just look at the amount of money is needed to try to make microprocessors in the United States. These are crazy numbers that they're throwing out, hundreds of billions of dollars to try to make chips back in the United States. So this was the reasoning, and what are you now actually doing? Because that's a really cool part.
Oh, just partying.
Besides that.
Oh. So yeah, the reason, the money, and there's something else happens with a lot of money, you know, like when we started, there are other people trying to do this, and we, let's say Meta has 100 people working on eye tracking, and I happen to know their leadership, and because I worked at Google, and then the guys that are in Google Glass with the office next door, their lead, he was our advisor, now so I know barely, and then everybody's kind of doing it, and you're afraid somebody's going to come in with a lot more money and do it. But now I think of it completely different. Like when Verily said they're raising $1 billion, they're not making anything. Like nothing costs $1 billion. The only thing that costs $1 billion is like when you have some manager throwing money. Like, but to actually do something, you have to sit down on the ground and do it. Like I'll tell you one thing: you pay me $1 billion, I am not doing anything way too hard. It's gonna be, if you give me $2 million, I'm in Greece. Like you're not seeing me working. So I think a lot of money has this amazing effect that it actually prevents innovation. Historically, I'm not saying, maybe somebody figures out the way to do it. But it's just a sign that you've gotten so big that you cannot maneuver.
It means that you have a lot of people in your structure and you need to pay all of them and they're happy. And
$1 billion means 10-layer structure, period. And that's itself. So what are we doing?
The glasses, yeah.
The glasses. So as we get older, right, we lose the ability to see up close. Eye comes with a little muscle that does autofocus, and the older you get, the less you can do it. And when you get to a point that you can't see up close, there is no LASIK, no surgery, nothing really that can help you, you just don't see. And we made a pair of glasses that scan your eye to know how far you're looking, and then change the prescription in real time, basically emulating what you did when you were younger. So it's kind of like the only solution for people north of 65 to actually see again. So I guess that would paint us in a hardware, R&D, AI box. That's what
so if we're trying to make a marketing story, I would say AI that will allow people to see after their muscles are gone in their eyes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Muscles are not gone, the lens is hard, but doesn't matter. Yeah, I think the problem with hardware is like, anything you want to make in software, including AI, like two of us get in a basement and we make a prototype in a weekend, and then we spend the next 5 years making it real. In hardware, before you can get to play with that prototype, you have to spend $4 million in a couple of years to make it. So I think hardware just means there's a big hurdle in front of your market risk. That's how I see it.
And just for information of the audience, where are you right now? Like, prototype is, I've seen prototype works, and where are you now?
Yeah, I'll make sure to pay you for that. So we're now trying to get it onto people. Right? We've tested it on one person to people, but now we're getting to a point where we want to work with ophthalmologists, send it to people so they carry it home. Ironing out the last, as it does. We have a new batch coming, and it just came in like 3 weeks ago, fixing the problems and then putting it onto people. We're going to sell it maybe early summer next year. That's the plan.
Okay, and that's going to be first of 100 units, right?
Yeah, I think.
And then the hardware will finally take off.
My start, yeah, billions, trillions, gajillions, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I think here's the thing, like, people always think that you design something. This is the most common fallacy in hardware, or in software really. Like you design something, you make it, you sell it, boom, boom, boom. But it's really not like that, right? You make something, and we made something, 5 years ago, and you give it to people, and they try it, and 50% of people are like, Then you have 20% of people who are like, this is kind of cool. But then you have like, every now and then somebody just cries, this is like, I can see again, right? And so long as you have that core of people who you have the potential to change their life, your job is to expand that core. So we had people who were like, when the thing was like helmet sized and was connected to a computer, we had people who were like, I want that because I need it for when I make my jewelry for like half an hour a day so that I can see, and then I don't really care what it looks like. But then later on, if you make it small, like we made it smaller, right? Then there are some people who are like, but we didn't make it aesthetically pleasing yet, right? Then there are people who are like, well, I do work, but I can't have it. But I'm a dentist, right? And I make $300,000 a year, and with this I can do it, and without it I cannot. I'll pay a lot of money. I don't care about aesthetics. I can just work 4 hours, right? But then later on, you have people that, so the next generation is going to be literally, you can't tell they're not glasses. They're smaller and everything. They're like the size of your glasses. And now you're hitting somebody, you're hitting a different audience. And so I think in your going to market, you want to make sure that you're hitting people with that emotional, that you have some core of people. It doesn't have to be everybody. Some core of people who are like, with this, I can live better. It makes sense to buy it. And so that's the plan, right? The plan is, and we have that audience, right? Because our first investors were ophthalmologists. That's how we kind of went, because it's easy to get money from ophthalmologists. You say like, I have autofocusing glasses for presbyopia, and they're like, say no more. I know exactly what I know the problem, I know the people, I know how big it is. And so I think we're gonna go, well, I know we're gonna go through our ophthalmologist network and then give it to people who really, really, really need it. And then I think from there on, you're trying to expand that, like, and I guess the success comes from how much, we know that there's a market, we can tell that it's pretty large, but if it's going to be world changing, then we have to expand it and cross that chasm between early adopters and...
Okay, I'll switch now to the topic. So, people that you're hiring, that you're looking for, you said the universities are not good in what's the sentence you used, something, research, innovation, whatever. But you need people who are more interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, so they cannot be just of one. How do you find them in Serbia? What did you look for? Where do you find them?
So remember when I talked about how like costs were a win in Serbia? Yeah. So hiring. Many people come here because, well, okay, let's take it back to AI. Happy topics, and everybody's talking about AI, but if you look at software engineering, 95% of it is not some new software engineering databases. It is just making business automation, like websites for banks. This is what people do. SaaS. I'm not saying SaaS software is not incredibly important and whatnot, but there's stuff that you need, like engineering degree, 4 years of education and whatnot, and there's stuff that you can do with a 3-month boot camp. And 95% of work you can do. It's always like that. Like the pyramid is always thicker at the bottom. And so same happens in AI, right? People are going to say, oh, we now need AI engineers. No, we don't. We need people who can use AI, and we need this market of people who. And we had amazing interviews. People who like do AI, and then turns out they don't really know anything, but they know how to use existing AI systems. And that's not a bad thing. That is the majority of work available out there. And so the problem with Serbia is, for this other work, you need to have A, schools, and B, experience. And we have great schools, yeah, but the experience, you need to work on projects. And so if you look at, for instance, our engineering kind of economy runs on outsourcing. And I don't know how much crack you're on, but you're not outsourcing research. Like, nobody is like, if you're trying to get research done, you're not going to be like, oh, let's hire some guys from India because, and not because India is bad, but because you want this thing to be in-house. That's the core knowledge that your company needs. And so, long story, longer. Outsourcing is horrible for raising research and development and senior talent. And then on top of that, we have this remote work. This is global. This is not Serbia, but basically to manage people, you learn that by being with people, right? You need that sensory overload. Just being. You can't teach management over Zoom. And so we've had 2-3 years of people working remotely, and you can literally see a gap of 2-3 years in management education. Like, you'll have your junior managers, seniors are there, but we didn't get this new crop of middle managers, and which is sad because if you look at who starts new companies, it's, the average age of successful startup founders is 40. So you need those people with 10, 15 years of experience. And so we've been hit on two fronts. It's really hard to, and on the third front, in early startups, you will have like 80% tech and 20% other, but then as you grow, you need sales and whatnot. And we just don't have that market, and so it's just really hard to hire a sales or marketing team in Serbia that has the experience. I'd love to go on and wax lyrical how like we have the best engineering talent, but that's just not true. Now, the nice thing about it is that it's much harder to teach people 4 years of school than it is to give them 4 years of experience. So like there's hope for us if we have a few startups. Was it Estonia that everybody's like talking about, like a great example of how government managed to make innovation? No, they had bloody ICQ. Is that what they had? Or Skype? Skype is what they had. So they had Skype. They had one company, made $1 billion, right? Like, and 10 people who were in that company who saw, who were the fly in the wall in every conversation, started 10 other companies. Of those 10 companies, like 3 were unicorns, like WhatsApp and whatnot. And so that is how you start innovation. And so I think with that experience, in the future, when we make bank and everybody's talking about, full vision, the Serbian unicorn, I think that the people that were there to make it, and it is really, it takes a village, right? Like in our team, we have about 5, 6 people who kind of drive the whole thing. Like if I get hit by fame today, we'll still have a company, which is not the case like a year ago. So there's a lot of shared experience, and so I really hope that, because these people are 0 to 1 people. They're not going to be there 20 years, right? They're going to build this and they're going to want to go and build something else. And I really feel that if we make a few of these successful ones, and it is luck to some extent, that the next batch of people who has the know-how, who has the connection, they're going to make new companies, and I think that's how we kickstart the ecosystem.
Okay, so we need success, that will breed success, and then serial entrepreneurs, themes for something like that.
Well, count me out. If you make bank, I'm done.
Yes, done. Too many series for you. Okay.
Well, last time I said that when I retired, like, when LinkedIn went public and they had an IPO, I was like, I'm retiring. I had everything planned, and I lasted 2.5 months.
Okay, so picture perfect in 2 years.
Okay.
Short time. What do you think ecosystem can do? Okay, making unicorns is takes time, takes right people, takes capital. But what you've seen here, and being now very active, let's say, you met a lot of people. What do you think is the capacity of this ecosystem? What can we do? I don't think we can have a unicorn, honestly. You? Besides you, of course.
I'll meet you outside. Well, there's different ways to make money, right? And so one common one is SaaS. Like I have this spiel that back in the 90s, when they made Apple and Windows, they said, oh, this is amazing new machine, they can do anything you want. You can, for your own business design, you can just draw a database and whatnot. And they made like Access and FileMaker, and nobody could draw anything, right? And so I made my money in the 90s, literally going and making for my mom, like she had a doctor office, like making a database of patients and yada yada. And then soon you figure out, like, well, why would I do it for one person and another person? Because, you get kind of like 2,000 to 3,000 euros. I'll just make one and give it to everybody. And then you do that, and then you quickly find out these companies had, like, I don't know, 2, 3 engineers and then 10 people in maintenance. Because what happens is 3 years down the line, somebody calls you and they're like, oh, I can't run your thing because I installed this new porn, and like all of a sudden the database for patients doesn't work. And so they started figuring out this sucks. First, it sucks that you have to maintain it forever, and second, it sucks that you have to do the maintenance. And so they invented the perfect remote desktop. Like, I'll run it on my machine, and you just get a view into it. And that was the internet, the web. And so if you look at that, and this is the majority of people's problems, like automate my business, automate my this. So let's run it on my computer and pay me monthly for it so I don't have to maintain it forever, and that's your SaaS. And that is 90-something% of engineering need. And so this is a very different thing than what we're doing. And I think for SaaS, if you're gonna bundle it all together and just call it IT, I don't subscribe to that. So I don't have any solution. SaaS is pretty better understood. It's a little bit, I'm not gonna say more formulaic, but more predictable, right? You know how much what's your conversion rate, because it's like marketing driven. You kind of know, like, if the company's at this stage and this many people, you kind of want the numbers to be like this, and you can kind of drive it. And some ecosystems are really that. There's a bunch of people who invest, and it's becoming commoditized, right? Because as a VC, you know what the metrics are for the investment. As somebody doing it, you know what like everything is commoditized. And there are people who are doing it significantly longer than us, okay? And they're closer to market than us. And so if we do have an advantage, which would be in salaries, I would expect the people from over there to come here, pay that, run it, and get the profit. And the profit is really interesting. This is why outsourcing, I'm not a big fan of, although all my buddies run outsourcing companies of 500 people. And I love them, they're good people. But the profits stay over there. Like a German bank pays you, the salaries stay in Serbia, the profits go to there. So the SaaS story, I think it's great. I think for us, it's good money. But I think globally, like, we're not going to be a new. This is my pessimistic opinion.
Okay, but how we get into hardware? I mean, how we get more into hardware? Okay, everybody wants to design a chip these days. Every continent wants to have its own foundry or something like that. I just read that Germany is putting 5 billion aside to make a foundry somewhere in Germany.
Yeah, I think we made one chip in Serbia. I think one. Yeah. How do you get into hardware? My mom's a doctor, and when I was choosing university, she said, you can be anything you want. You can, whatever you want. If you want to be a painter, go paint. You can't be a doctor. So I don't think people should get into hardware. Like, the Q is in the name, right? It's hard. So, but if you want to get into hardware, there are a few companies here that do it seriously. Again, a lot of them are in outsourcing, meaning somebody else is doing the hardware, we're testing it, we're doing non-research commodity work. But there are people in hardware doing actual work. Big up to, I don't know, Trilateral. They got into hardware, they did it, and they sold and made money. And people that did research there came and helped us. So this is already happening. Like, they literally seeded us, right? And so there's also companies in Belgrade that do interesting hardware. I think when I asked them, it's like 5 dudes from Belgrade started like 10 companies, and I asked them, and it turns out there was a professor from San Diego came and opened a company here, and those 5 kids then worked there and got the experience. So I think the key is to do like the kind of a cuckoo maneuver that I did. You go in the States, you take the experience, and then you bring it here. You have to have, like, when you go to Bali and there's all these kids who are 21 years old and they're like life coaches. Like, do you know how many people are in my LinkedIn? They're like, first job off of college is startup advisor. Like, I promise not to curse, but get the fuck out of it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you can't be a startup advisor with 20, like.
That would be a good time to cut you off, because after the first curse, many comes out. But
startup advisor.
I feel your pain, actually. I agree with you.
Ecosystem.
Okay, so maybe this is a good time to take a question if we have some from audience.
David.
Kad kažeš Nebojša, da li nam budeš malo specifičniji?
Obojica, ovako, pitanje ide na Fuller Vision. Ja mislim da će to biti Skype od Srbije. Za Srbiju, što ste rekli, za Litvani, da. A vidim da nisi skroman, znači spreman si za to.
Skroman, to ne kažeš.
Još neko vrijeme se, meni draga moja žena pre 10 godina rekla, ja sam spreman da budem milijarder, samo se ti čekaš.
Vidiš, način tu sam kao tvoja žena. Nego, da li si ti spreman da insourcuješ manufacturing in Srbiji, right? Zato što...
Ajde da pričamo o tome.
Ajde, let's do that.
Pošto smo mi živjeli jedno vreme u Kini i cijela priča bila you manufacturing in China, right? That's what you do. Can I flip it to English so that my co-founder who's trying to learn Serbian, but...
Well, translate the question.
Yeah, the question was, am I ready to talk about insourcing manufacturing in Serbia? So where do we do manufacturing, right? So, we try to do, because stuff we do is kind of tricky to do. And when we started looking into lens labs, we talked to 100 lens labs in America. I'm not kidding, they called 100 lens labs. We visited a bunch of them, chose one which was by far the best and most researchy of all of them, and it was a complete, I don't know a single word that doesn't involve a curse word that explains exactly what I saw. But, and then we talked to, there's 4 people that are doing lenses in Serbia, and we talked to all of them, and we found that the level of, mind you, most of them don't even work for Serbian market. And so the person that we're working for works for German market, runs like, it's like a space shuttle. We make our lenses in Belgrade. He knows his dad built it, he knows every single machine, can repair it, all pieces of software, everything. So we really found that, whereas if you want to chase the last penny, you want to go to China, but if you want to do research, Serbia is better, and so we do our lenses here. And then when you want to do PCBs, okay, if you're Apple, you can pay billions to research it in China, but China is not really set up for that. Like, their IP system, their everything is not set up for developing IP. So where does, I don't know, CERN, or like BMW, or Mercedes, where do they do their research PCBs? With Sava in Macedonia. Sava is Serbian, and so this is where we do our PCBs. So to answer your question, we are fully like doing manufacturing in Serbia, and this is exactly how we're saving money, not with hiring.